and welcome to another edition of the Book Review Blog. I am your book reviewer, and today we're going to review the book Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. As I said before, this is a sequel to the book The Hunger Games, and so therefore it has the same kind of major characters, mainly the Katniss Everdeen, and Peeta. Mellark, I think is his last name. As I noticed before in the Hunger Games, I called him Petra. I apologize for that. His actual name is Peeta. I think it's Peeta. Anyway, if I remember from the last time that I did this, Katniss and Peeta actually win together the first Hunger Games thing. It's actually the 74th annual Hunger Games in the history of the Panem, their new country or their new Earth, and so as this is very different because in the other 73 games there had only been one victor, but in the game they made themselves kind of be like star-crossed lovers, and so they decided that if both of us couldn't win, no one could. We can't really kill each other, or try to at least, so we're just gonna kill ourselves. And so then they kind of made an exception with the games and declared them both winners. So that's kind of where the first or the second book starts. Obviously they've been winners, so they, as part of winning, they go on this victory tour where they visit all of the other 11 districts. As I said, if you remember before, that Panem, their new area, is divided into 12 districts, and Katniss and Peeta are in District 12. So, and before they start this victory tour, Katniss is seen with Gale, and they both kind of look like they're in love. As before, the relationship between Katniss and Peeta was kind of a funny thing that they were going to just do just to get the audience's attention, and sympathy. So they kind of weren't in love, although it might have been kind of questionable whether Peeta loved her really and what Katniss's feelings for Peeta were. But Katniss really didn't have any feelings for Peeta, so her feelings were more toward her friend Gale, as she was realizing. And however, in this land of Panem, the things that you do are seen by other people. It's definitely, not as bad as like 1984's Big Brother, but you do have to be careful because what you do is maybe viewed by other people. So, and it just happened to turn out that as Katniss and Gale were hunting and kind of playing around, it was seen by the president of Panem, in the capital. His name is President Snow, and when he visits Katniss before the victory tour and threatens her, basically says that I noticed that Gale is more of a kind of boyfriendy love for you than Peeta is. If you have to convince me that you and Peeta actually love each other, or else I will basically kill your family. If it's shown that you were teasing me and teasing everybody in Panem, then your family and Gale and Peeta's family, everybody that you know, will basically be killed. So Katniss is very shaken up by this, and so she goes on with Peeta to the victory tour, and in the first district, they go to District 11. They work their way down, I guess. And in the first district, in the last book, there was a character that I mentioned called Rue, who Katniss kind of befriended and really cared for, and she was from District 11, and again, she ended up being killed. And Katniss felt really bad going to District 11 because of Rue, and she's like, I'm sorry that Rue had to die. And what happens is Katniss makes a speech talking about that, and there's an older man who sings a song that Rue sang to Katniss, and then as Rue died, Katniss sang the same song to her, and it was a kind of a peace offering that we know you didn't mean to kill her. This is all part of the Capitol's plan to overrun us and things, and therefore there are people that were called peacekeepers, and kind of a weird name because they're not really peacekeeper, or they don't really keep any peace. They silence any sort of rebellion, and so these peacekeepers go on to this man and end up killing him. So and that started at the beginning, so I'm like, whoa, that's kind of big. And then they go on to the other districts and they make their run, and then it kind of goes on where there are districts that are talking about another rebellion, and Katniss hears from other people from another district that they're going to run away from their district, which is against the law, and they're going to go to District 13. And she's like, what are you talking about? District 13 was destroyed because of the last rebellion. They're like, oh no, it still exists. They're just keeping it quiet. So she's very confused about that, but before she can think about it anymore, figure it out anymore, they announce that it's another year for the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is up again, and because it's the 75th anniversary, they do this thing called the Quarter Quell, where every 25th year they do something completely different. It's kind of a twist, I guess. If you're familiar with like reality television, they'll and they'll do a twist or something. And this year, the 75th year, they decide that instead of putting new people into the ring, I guess, for the Hunger Games, they're going to have all of the victors in the ring. So Katniss, they're going to do one male and one female victor from each district. Well, Katniss kind of realizes that there wasn't a lot of people from District 12, and especially there was only one female, which was her, so she finds herself going back into the dome, as I said, into the environment of the Hunger Games. So I'm going to stop for a second. That was kind of weird for me in this book because it was introduced very late. I didn't like that part. It was weird, though, because it was introduced in the later half of the book. So, again, the first half was, again, going through the victory parties and the victory tours and seeing all about the rebellion and things like that. But then all of a sudden they're throwing in, oh, we're going to play the Hunger Games again, I guess. And I thought that was kind of weird. And so, and Peeta is chosen as well, or he goes in for somebody else who's a lot older in District 12. So it's Katniss and Peeta again against every other district. And what happens is that it's recommended by her mentors that she form alliances, which I thought was kind of weird because, again, I'm not really a reality television fan, but it kind of reminded me of like things like Survivor and Big Brother, where you form alliances with other people, but instead of somebody getting evicted or kicked out every week, they're getting killed. So like, why would you want to form alliances with somebody who eventually is going to kill you? But they form alliances with a man named Finnick and a much older woman, I think she's like 80, named Madge. And they kind of go into the game and they kind of seek out all the things around it and see all the differences that they do. And again, there are lots, kind of like reality television, there's again, like I said, there's different twists. Like, they realize that each little part of this, it's a dome, as I said before, and each part of this little dome is, there's something big that happens. Like in one little part, lightning strikes at some point. In another little part, a wave happens, and in another little part, big insects or birds kind of attack, or they do things to them. So eventually they learn that it's the capital working against them, obviously, and that it's going to work. It works like a clock, where each section is like an hour. So like 12 to 1 is one section, and like 1 to 2 is one section, and they each do different things. So it was I liked that part. It was very different, again, from the book before. So again, that was an interesting twist. And so Katniss, Peeta, Finnick, and Madge, unfortunately Madge dies very early because, again, she's kind of old, but she realizes that something else happens in the book, or in another section. Another section has kind of poisonous fog, and she kind of kills herself because she realizes she can't go on very much longer because of her age. So that was interesting, because then they're like, oh, well, we can use this to our advantage. We can just kind of pinpoint where everything is and stay away from that and actually use it towards our enemies. And they actually do use it towards their enemies, or they start to, and towards the end they wanted to build this this like copper wiring that went through. They're like, okay, in this thing the lightning is going to strike and it's going to hit the wire, and the wire is going to be underwater, and so everything, of course, because when lightning hits water it becomes electrified, so everybody that's near the water is going to die. So that kind of that tries to happen, but it goes awry. So, and then that's kind of, and then something big happens and Katniss is kind of thrown back, and that's kind of not really where the book ends, but that's where the game ends. And still she's alive, and Peeta's alive, like everyone in their little alliance is still alive, and which again was a new twist from the last one, and new rules to the games, because again only one person could be alive. So and then Katniss kind of becomes unconscious after that, and she wakes up in kind of a medical room, or kind of a doctor's office, oddly, and she hears from other people that this wire was not to kill other people, it was actually to destroy the games. There was force field around the games, and they were trying to break the force field. I know it's very confusing. That's why you should read the book, because there's lots of things that I'm not saying. And but again, it was good, and I recommend it. And especially if you enjoy the Hunger Games, please read the sequel. I intend to even read the third book a little bit later. But for my next book, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish I'm going to read the next book in the kind of Christina Snow Crank series. The last book in that series is called Fallout, as you can see, and I'm really excited about this book because I've never read it, and I want to see what happens with Christina's children, is what is going to happen. So I bid you all a happy evening and happy reading.